we've got one more rack to build for here, and I've got my cut list of all the pieces. Well, that's not focusing very well. These are all the pieces I need to cut, and that's the pile of sticks. Let's get into it. It takes a while to cut, and I wish I could do a time lapse, but I just don't have the time at the moment. Here's all the pieces from the cut list. Time to clean up, and we can start nailing it together to make the final rack. Third of the way through banging this one together, so we're going to keep slugging. I've just flipped it over. Time to nail the rest of it together, and we'll see what happens. So I had a little bit of time left over and managed to get it in place, and the air pump doesn't have to relocate too far. I'll probably tidy it up a little. Just wait for this to dry and we can put some tanks on it. Tanks coming in a couple of days time. So the first tank in the rack is this 3x2 by 1.5 tank. It's pretty massive, it needs a clean, I know that. I'm planning on getting a 2x2 by 1.5 display tank for here. That'll be for a special project. 4-foot sump's going to go here. I have 9 tanks here. Got to get to painting this today. Alright, that's a little bit more like it. Now you're starting to see what I've got to work with here. So I'll have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 3 footers there, split in 3, so there'll be 27 individual tank sections in that. 3-foot display tank, 2x2 foot display tank, 7 Kmart tanks, sump and storage. Starting to feel a bit realer now. And for the last time in this project, I'm going to put some paint on, flip these racks over, and the tanks hopefully show up tomorrow or the day after. About midway through painting these, I need to flip them over shortly because they've been drying as I've been going. But watching paint dry isn't fun and you don't care about paint, so I'm just going to finish this off, and the next thing you'll see is when they're in place. Look at my hands. Oh yeah, starting to get a feel for what it's going to look like now. I am so excited. This whole wall is going to be tanks. It's going to be insane. Is I've screwed these together from both sides with some nice long 65mm screws, and that essentially makes all of this one big unit. So that'll be good for stability in case you're wondering if it's going to go like that. It's definitely not anyway because it's all tied together, but this will just give it that extra rigidity. And now it's time to cut some ply, because I just want to do these bottom ones and also the top one for here and the shelf. Almost done with painting now that those baseboards have been cut to size. I put these shelves in, and as usual made a huge mess myself. But these are painted. There's the third one up there, and I realised I need some of these painted for outside. That won't be immediately obvious, but you might get to see that eventually. And we're done. They're all nailed down on the base level. That'll just prevent any vermin from making nests underneath because it's completely sealed. Now it's time to start getting the polystyrene. I need to cut 9 pieces for here and 1 for here because that's all the tanks on the way. Getting closer, and tomorrow is tank delivery day, so I'm getting really excited. Cutting the polystyrene for these ones is going to be nice and easy because these are 600 wide sheets and this is a 600 deep rack. So I just have to do 1 cut for these instead of 2 like all of these ones. Last night's storm here on the Gold Coast was completely hectic. We weathered the storm okay, but apart from 1 fish jumping out of the tank, everyone survived even though we lost power for 8.5 hours. I ran the generator sporadically for about 2.5 hours till it ran out of fuel, and luckily the power's all come back on here at 5:30 this morning. So there you go, we survived and we're okay.
1 eternity later.
So we've had delivery of the glass now. I'm really excited about how all of this looks, but I've got a bit more work to do. We had a massive storm here on Christmas night actually, and I've kind of shut down, had some family time. I just cut these down to size. Those are the boards for this along the top here so that the tanks don't fall in, and also for outsides we're going to paint that, put that together, and we can start bringing in the Kmart tanks and putting them up there. Please excuse the massive mess. I've got this tank on order now being made, so that should show up sometime in the next 2 to 3 weeks hopefully. But up the top here I've just sat in place the 7 of my 20 litre Kmart tanks. Now they're used for raising fry, so whether I throw corridor eggs in or mops or whatever, that's where the process begins, and then we'll have some room in these tanks over here. So one of the first things that I really need to get to soon is starting to plumb in these tanks, this tank, and all of these top tanks into this sump here. As you can appreciate, there's a lot of work that goes into this, not only wrapping the tanks, and I've started on the bottom ones down there, so they've started to be wrapped. Once they're in place, they need plumbing. Before you can do that, you need lights in place. So as you can see, I've started routing the lights down here. These are two 1.2 metre bars. They turn out a little bit longer than 1.2 metres, but they throw a ton of lights. I only need two, and there's only one power cord here that powers both of those. But before I can get to lighting, I need to start making some decisions on where I'm going to put my power boards. I need one that's on a timer for the lights, and I need one that isn't on the timer, so we've got two outlets, and that's actually why I built, you might wonder why it looks so funny and offset like this. I actually built this so I finally had access to the mains outlet down there. These brackets here now, they need to go around the back, and those lights need to go around the back. I need all that in place before I can do any plumbing, but like I said, I need to get some outlets in place so I can start running the lights. And because I stuck with the 3D printed brackets that I made last time for this rack over here, luckily the lights are the same brand, so they all fit exactly the same, and they go perfectly onto this 35 by 70 timber that I make the stand out of. And there it is. I only have one more set of lights to go now, which will be up the top, which I'll actually be attaching to the inlet and aerator plumbing. So I can't do that yet, but that's 75% of the lighting done. The sump here doesn't need any lighting at all, and I won't be lighting it because I don't want any algae in there. And the fry raising or the egg hatching tanks, they don't need light either. I keep them low light. They only get ambient, so whatever's coming in the window or whatever is bouncing around the fish room, there's plenty for that. The next jobs in the fish room will be to rewrap this tank because I want the back black like all of these other tanks are going to be wrapped. So that's got to come out. It also needs a clean. This has been letting the look of everything down because this was outside before, so we're going to have to do a bit of a clean on the inside of that tank and bring it up to spec. Then it can get plumbed straight down here on the outlet because this already had a hole drilled that I drilled in here, and just put some cheap Bunnings outlet adapters on. So that'll just have an elbow and go straight down to the sump. And today, the other things I need to finish, I picked up a bunch of foam from Coastwide Aquariums down at Southport. Thank you so much, guys. Love your work. That'll allow me to finish off the rest of these tanks. I've got a bunch of fish on the way coming for these bottom tanks in the next 48 hours. So I've got to get cranking on that. It's hot in here, it's like 30 degrees, so that's why the fan's going. And then I've got to start wrapping these tanks, getting ready to plumb them to the sump. So there's a lot going on in the fish room, but that's where I'll leave this video for today. Catch you on the next one.